We have buck and bull cows. Well, maybe we don't. I think maybe we got them sold last night. But anyway, we have buck and bull cows. My daughter's in the buck and bull business, and we raise them. And I'll say buck and bull, a lot of buck and bull cows are sensitive. And if you get after them and get after them too much, they will change. They will change from animals that like you to animals that don't like you. And they'll try to get rid of you. Like they'll get on the fight. There are some of them that are real gentle. And you've got to work them in a way that works for them, and you've got to work the real snorty ones in a way that works for them. The reason that is because, and Temple was talking about it a little bit last night, the brain. And I'm not a scientific guy, I just got to kind of think of things in cowboy terms. But I look at an animal and they have a brain. And I'll say it has two sides to it. When we're working our animals, whatever method you're using, you've got to watch what's happening to the brain. And some of those signals that Temple was talking about, the seeing of the white of the eye, the raising of the head, the swishing of the tail, those little subtle signals, and those aren't subtle signals, those are things that anybody should be able to see. I feel there's two things when I look at somebody that's a stockman that I kind of judge them on. One is how quickly they can see an animal get sick before it gets sick. When they see an animal that's off, before it even gets off. That's somebody that's observed cattle, and I think it's kind of a subconscious thing, that you don't even know what you're doing, but it's like weighing cattle. If you can guess weight on cattle, it's not like, well, I think he's 17 inches across at the neck. You don't do that, you just look at the animal, and pretty soon your brain tells you what he weighs. You can see an animal when they're off, or maybe not the same. If you have that in your subconscious mind, you'll know that that animal is different and he's getting sick. That's really a strong trait. And that's something that has observed cattle and thought about what cattle are and what they do. The other trait I like to look at is when people can see cattle when they're changing from thinking to fear or flight or whatever. And that's the brain. We have the thinking side of the brain, and that's the normal side. And we have the reacting side of the brain. And that's the side of the brain where they're thinking, should I leave or should I stay? And when they cross over to the reacting side, I'll call this growth over here. This is the growth side. The thinking side of the brain is the growth side of the brain. The other side, that's the survival side of the brain. Or if you want to put it in cattleman's terms, we have this is the gain side of the brain. This is the shrink side of the brain. That's the terms I like. That's a great way to look at it. This is the shrink side of the, I don't know what side it is. When they're thinking, they're gaining. When they're surviving, they're shrinking. So we want to keep these animals on this side of their brain, the thinking side of the brain, as much as we can. And a good stockman is always watching. If I'm putting pressure on this animal and it's starting to switch, I know that that animal can't take that pressure. And I've got to change the way I do things to fit the animal. It's not going to change to fit me. I've got to change to fit it. And this is where we come into pressure and how we apply pressure. We kind of understand the eye. Everything, I started thinking about cattle handling, and it's really all about pressure. So if I'm going to put some cattle on a trailer, I think we're going to load some cattle this afternoon. Now, if that trailer is creating, let's say, 100 pounds of pressure on these cattle, say it's putting 100 pounds of pressure back. If I'm back here and I've got to load those cattle, I've got to at least put 101 pounds of pressure back here, or I'm not going to get them loaded. That seems so simple to me to look at it that way. But if I put 175 pounds of pressure on these cattle and only took 110 pounds of pressure, now I might have changed their brain to shrink, and now I'm in trouble. And if it's too much pressure too fast, instead of going into the trailer, they won't have time to think their way onto the trailer, or think their way through the chute, or think their way through the gate because of too much pressure. And now they react, and they're going to try to get out of that pressure. And that's when they get on the fight, or run over you, or jump fences, those kind of things. So your pressure, the way you put pressure on is real important to get this deal done. We've got to put pressure on these cattle. We've got to put more pressure on than it's coming back. But the way we put that pressure on. Now, I've only talked about vision, and I'm a big position guy. Where you position yourself, where you place yourself is what is important.